Hey there, fellow LARPers, and welcome back to the Adventurer's Dispatch. This week, there are a lot of events you can still actually attend in the next few weeks. Not hypothetically, not sometime this year, but right now if you're willing to make the call. There are also a bunch of events about to open up applications for ticket sales, as well as a last call for a special chance to make LARP history. I'm Steven, your little LARP ferret, trying to bring together the LARPs that are available, going to be available, or are worth jumping on a waitlist for. Adventurer's Dispatch is a place to get news and features regarding the world of LARP. So please leave a comment below if you'd like us to cover your favorite event or know of any status changes out there that I may have missed. Okay, let's get into it. First up, Glory of Guildhall from Mystic Realms in Medford, New Jersey is running April 10th through 12th at Camp Kettle Run, so that's this weekend. This is a mid-sized fantasy campaign LARP. Think swords, factions, guild politics, but it leans much harder into the roleplay continuity rather than just combat encounters. Mystic Realms has always had that slightly old-school community-driven feel where your character relationships matters just as much as what you can swing. And the venue, Camp Kettle Run, is one of those wooded scout-style sites where everything feels just grounded enough to sell the illusion without needing massive set dressing. Cabins, forest paths, central gathering spaces, it supports the game without overwhelming it. Now, this is just a few days away, but if you hurry, you can likely still get in. And if you can't, there are more opportunities throughout the year, including May 1st and June 5th. So get your characters sorted and go and play. Next, let's move to Ashen Showers from Dystopia Rising, New York, happening April 17th through 19th at Forestburg Scout Reservation in Forestburg, New York. This is post-apocalyptic pressure built around scarcity, survival, and community, not just fighting monsters, but negotiating resources, dealing with consequences, and living in a world that feels like it's always one bad decision away from collapse. Forestburg as a site really reinforces that. It's not a pristine fantasy field. It's rougher, more utilitarian, and that actually helps sell the setting. And the key thing here is this is a campaign game you can still enter midstream. You don't have to have been there for the last 5 years. You can step in, get your footing, and start building a character who matters. And again, if you can't make it this weekend, check out their schedule for the rest of the year. Now, if you're down in the southeast, Xadune is running its 3-day event this weekend, April 10th through 12th at FDR State Park in Warm Springs, Georgia. And this one is different. This is a steampunky Victorian-era immersive LARP, where the tension isn't about fighting monsters. It's about social standing, secrets, public societal presentation, as well as mystical creatures and airships. Think period clothing, structured interactions, and a kind of slow-burn drama surrounded by a weirdly familiar yet alien world. The park itself adds to that atmosphere, wide open spaces, historical feel, and actual lodging included, which is a huge quality of life factor. And right now the practical hook is simple. There's still time to sign up, but not a lot. And once more, if you can't make their April 10th event, there's a few more events scheduled throughout the year. Check them out. And if you can make it for April 10th, well, what are you waiting for? Back into fantasy, but with a different flavor. Myth LARP is gearing up for its Spring 2 event, May 22nd through 24th in Pomfret, Connecticut. Myth sits in that interesting middle space between large-scale fantasy and accessible entry. It's big enough to feel like a world, factions, politics, ongoing storylines, but it's also one of the easier campaign games to step into as a new player. They actively support onboarding, and that $75 new player early bird rate is one of the more welcoming entry points you'll find for a multi-day game. The site, a 275-acre camp in Connecticut, gives them room to breathe. You're not just playing in a field, you're moving through a landscape. And the key timing here, early bird pricing ends May 8th. So although this is less panic now, it's still decide soon. Now let's talk about something that feels very grounded and structured. Citadel LARP, with Season 2 Event 2 running May 15th through 17th in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It describes itself as an Arcanatech fantasy adventure live-action role-playing game. An adventure fantasy buffer LARP with a setting that incorporates Arcanatech and Clockpunk. The player characters will explore an ancient structure known as the Citadel and its surrounding ruins, while fending off monsters who want to claim it for their own. The venue, Booker T. Washington State Park, which gives you that classic fantasy camp feel, but with enough infrastructure that you're not roughing it unnecessarily. This is a great example of a game that's not flashy, but very playable. Check out their website below in the description to see more specifics. But again, you've only got roughly a month to jump on this. Now, if your taste runs a little less toward battlefield heroics and a little more toward power, politics, and consequences, then Magna Carta, Robin and John is one to keep firmly on your radar. This is a Nordic-style immersive LARP from Dystopia Rising, set for October 16th through 18th, 2026, at Camlin Medieval Village, about an hour outside of Seattle. And the venue really matters here, because you're not stepping into a blank campsite, you're stepping into a built medieval village, which immediately grounds the experience in something that feels lived in and real. The game itself is centered around the tensions that gave rise to the Magna Carta. Loyalty, rebellion, authority, survival, but it's all filtered through the mythic lens of Robin Hood and King John. So instead of asking, can I win this fight, it's asking, what am I willing to sacrifice to get what I want? That's a very different kind of pressure. Tickets are currently live, and people choose into this kind of game because they want that emotional weight, that political tension, that sense that every conversation matters. So if that's your lane, if you want a weekend where the stakes are personal instead of just physical, this is absolutely the one to be looking at now, not later. In Bavaria, near Munich, an English-language run of FeindFahrt is now open for tickets. The run's scheduled for January 21st through 24th, 2027. And this one is something else entirely, because FeindFahrt takes place aboard a recreated World War II U-boat, which means that from the moment you step in, the environment is doing the work for you. Tight corridors, mechanical systems, no personal space. Everything is close, everything is shared, and everything matters more because there's nowhere else to go. This is a military-structured, scenario-driven LARP, where you're assigned a role within a functioning chain of command. Orders are given, systems have to be maintained, and how well you work with people around you directly affects how the experience unfolds. And now that tickets are actively available, this shifts from a concept piece to a real opportunity, but one that requires commitment. These runs are limited by the physical space of the so-called submarine. It's actually a film studio. I think they used it for Das Boot. So anyway, capacity is inherently tight. So if the idea of stepping into a controlled, high-pressure environment, something closer to simulation than traditional LARP, appeals to you, this is absolutely one to lock in early, as in now. Another truly distinctive LARP, Demeter, a Gothic horror LARP set aboard a real traditional sailing ship, with its final run scheduled for November 5th through 8th, 2026, and tickets going on sale April 15th. This takes place on the three-masted schooner Pipolata, sailing the Baltic Sea between Germany and Denmark, with participants actually learning and operating the ship as part of the experience. You're not just on the vessel, you're part of the crew. Capacity is extremely tight, just 26 participants, which tells you immediately what kind of experience this is. It's not scalable. It's intimate, physical, and shared. The game itself draws from the Demeter chapter of Dracula, focusing on Gothic horror themes like isolation, decay, superstition, and the unknown. But importantly, it's not about scripted outcomes or guaranteed vampire encounters. It's about atmosphere, co-creation, and the slow realization that something aboard is wrong. And the environment, again here, does the heavy lifting. You're in a space roughly the size of a tennis court at sea in November, dealing with cold, wind, physical work, and the reality that you cannot leave the story even if you wanted to. And one more key detail, this is going to be the final run of this LARP. So with tickets dropping April 15th for a 26-player ship-based experience that has been running since 2015, this is very much a decide immediately or miss it permanently situation. Over in Sweden, Griffin 4, set in the world of the Griffin School of Monster Hunting, runs July 16th through 19th in Blekinge. And this one is all about atmosphere. It takes place in a hidden forest village where monsters are common, and just beyond it stands the fortress where elite hunters are trained, with a tone clearly inspired by The Witcher and Dragon Age. The event is a 2.5-day Nordic LARP built around player-driven story, mystery, and moral ambiguity, all set inside a fully built medieval village with caves, marshland, and forest terrain in play. At the center is a village festival layered over a darker mystery. Something is stirring beneath the school, and a forest is starting to watch again. Tickets are expected to go on sale in April, so this is very much a be ready when it drops situation. Over in the UK, Menhirs Fate is shaping up to be one of the more interesting entries this year. This is a fantasy festival LARP, meaning multi-event structure, ongoing factions, and a social layer that extends beyond just a single weekend. The first 2026 run is May 15th through 17th in Buckingham, with additional events later in the year. What's interesting here is the positioning. They're clearly aiming for that community-building repeat attendance model, not just show up once and leave. And right now, there's still an early bird discount through May 1st, which makes this a planning decision, not a last-minute scramble. In Germany, Fallen Badland LARP 2026 runs April 29th through May 3rd in Malwinkel. And this one is very much not fantasy. This is post-apocalyptic simulation, focused on economies, survival, and social systems. You're trying to exist in a world where stability is fragile. And that design choice matters because it attracts a very different kind of player. If you like tension and emergent storytelling, this is one of the more interesting European options right now. But check the website out. It doesn't look like it's for the faint-hearted. There's no drinking water on site. Sleeping is in abandoned army barracks. Plus, while it is run by post-apocalyptic events, which has many English-speaking LARPs, at the website for Fallen, I couldn't find mention of what language to expect here. You probably need to be up on your German, but check the site out for yourself. And now to Helicon, a dark, intimate, high-concept LARP about brilliant artists and the muses they have bound into service. So the draw here is not combat, scale, or spectacle. It's pressure, beauty, control, and the kind of character play that gets under your skin a little. The newly announced editions are now set for two 2027 runs, January 16th through 17th and February 13th through 14th, which makes this a real forward-planning item rather than a vague someday one. And that matters because Helicon is the kind of game people do not drift into by accident. They choose it because they want something smaller, sharper, and more emotionally curated than a big campaign field event. If your taste leans towards intense interpersonal drama, artistic decadence, and that very Nordic feeling of stepping into a beautifully controlled emotional furnace, this is one to watch now, while those 2027 runs are still in the planning and application phase, rather than the "why did nobody tell me sooner" phase. The website says sign-up forms are to come, so keep an eye out on it. For immersive experiences, let's start with something much closer to the ground, the Haven in New York. This is not a spectacle-driven experience. It's not a walkthrough with big set pieces or a photo-forward installation. The Haven is built around intimacy and presence. Small groups, contained space, and a focus on what happens between people in the room. It combines theater with therapeutic techniques, featuring a guide named Panacea to help participants explore personal challenges. It's described as a journey of transformation focused on care and wonder. When you step into something like this, the scale changes immediately. You're not one face in a crowd, you're part of the environment. And the story doesn't unfold over there, it unfolds around you, and sometimes because of you. That also means the tone tends to be more controlled, more deliberate. You're not being rushed from scene to scene, you're being placed somewhere and allowed to exist inside of it. And because of that design, capacity is naturally limited. These are not events that run for hundreds of people at a time. They fill quietly without a lot of noise, and then they're simply gone. So if you're in New York area and you've ever been curious about immersive experiences that feel closer to Nordic LARP or chamber theater than theme park attraction, the Haven is very much in that lane. Now, coming at immersion from a completely different angle, there's reSound in New York. reSound is about environmental design, specifically through sound. This is an experience that builds immersion not through narrative dialogue or character play, but through audio, movement, and spatial awareness. You're guided, sometimes very subtly, sometimes directly, through an environment where what you hear shapes how you move, where you focus, and what you feel. It's less about playing a role and more about being placed inside a constructed sensory experience. What's interesting about projects like this is how much they overlap with LARP without looking like LARP. The same questions are there. Where am I? What is my relationship to this space? What am I supposed to do, if anything? But instead of giving you a character sheet, they give you a designed environment and let your perception do the work. These kind of experiences also tend to be limited run and experimental, which means they don't always stick around long, and they don't always advertise loudly. So if you're curious about where immersive design is going, not just where it's been, reSound is exactly the kind of thing worth seeking out. Now, shifting up in scale a bit, Titanic Echoes from the Past, opening in Charlotte, North Carolina from May 2nd through June 30th, is much closer to what people think of when they hear immersive experience. A walk-through narrative environment where you're moving through a story that's already structured, already built, and designed to unfold in a specific way. In this case, it's the Titanic, so the emotional hook is already there. But what these experiences tend to do well is layer that familiarity with proximity. You're not watching the story from a distance, you're walking through it, seeing the spaces, hearing the sounds, being placed physically inside something that you already understood emotionally. And while it's not interactive in the same way a LARP is, it still taps into that same instinct. What would it feel like to be there? So if you're someone who enjoys immersion but doesn't necessarily want to perform, this is the other side of that spectrum. More guided, more structured, but still very much about stepping inside a world. Now let's look at something that plays in that space between fear and, honestly, a little bit of fun. What Are You Afraid Of in Somerville, Massachusetts, which is currently running through April 2026 with tickets on sale now. This is a small group immersive horror experience, but it's not just about dread and discomfort. There's a whimsical, almost playful edge to it, the kind of experience that knows exactly what it's doing to you and occasionally lets you in on the joke before pulling the rug out from you once again. You're moving through a controlled environment where performers are aware of you and sometimes gently or not so gently steer you into moments that feel surprisingly personal. It's intimate, it's close, and it's designed to keep you just off balance enough that you're never entirely sure what's coming next. And because it's built for small groups, this is not something that sits around waiting for you to decide. It's active right now. It's limited capacity, and when those slots fill, that's the end of it. So if you like your horror with a little personality, a little wink behind the curtain, this is very much a go while it's running situation. If you've watched this far, would you mind giving a like or maybe subscribing? Adventurer's Dispatch is trying to bring together the LARPs that are available, going to be available, or are worth jumping on a waitlist for. This is a place to get the news and features regarding the world of LARP. So please leave a comment below if you'd like us to cover your favorite event, or know of any status changes out there that I may have missed. There's a particular kind of moment in LARP that we don't talk about very often. And it's not when tickets go live, it's not when something sells out. It's before all of that. It's when a project is still just an idea. And the only thing standing between that idea and reality is whether enough people believe in it. That's where Odysseus is right now. This LARP project from Larian Tales that has run to much acclaim in 6 previous runs a couple years ago currently is in its crowdfunding phase. And here's the critical piece. There are roughly 2 weeks left on the campaign clock. And if it does not hit its goal, the project doesn't happen. Not delayed, not scaled down, it stops. Odysseus is being built as a sci-fi, Battlestar Galactica-inspired, Greek myth-infused narrative LARP. And that combination is actually really telling, because what they're going for isn't just aesthetic, it's theme. The creators are very clearly leaning into ideas like the cost of survival, the burden of leadership, the idea of home, and what it even means anymore. In their own framing, this is about a journey, not just physically, but emotionally. A group of people, maybe you, trying to get somewhere while constantly being forced to decide, who do we protect? What do we sacrifice? And what part of ourselves do we leave behind along the way? Okay, now you might be thinking, space LARP, myth inspiration, I've heard versions of this before. But here's where this one stands apart. This is not being pitched as a combat-forward game, and it's not being pitched as a sandbox, though it might be a little bit of both. It's being pitched as a story engine, a place where characters carry emotional weight, relationships matter, and the narrative moves because of players' decisions, not pre-written outcomes. In the campaign materials, the tone is very intentional, almost poetic at times, emphasizing that this is about the journey, the people beside you, and what it takes to keep going. And that's a very Nordic-adjacent design philosophy, even if the setting itself is sci-fi myth. Now here's the part that matters most, because this isn't just tickets are available. Crowdfunding flips the relationship. When you back a project like this, you're not just reserving a seat, you're answering a question. Should this exist? And right now, even though I and many others have said yes, the final answer is still to be decided. The creators put forward the concept, the tone, the ambition, but they've also made it very clear. This only moves forward if the community steps in. As of right now, the campaign is active, time limited, about 2 weeks remaining, and still working toward its funding goal. Which means we are in that very specific phase where early supporters are already in, interest is visible, but the outcome is not guaranteed. And that's a very fragile moment, because this is where projects either cross the line or quietly disappear. So here's the real question. Not, do I want to go to this LARP someday, but do I want this LARP to exist at all? Because if this hits, you get a new kind of story-driven, myth-infused sci-fi experience. Something that clearly isn't trying to be just another weekend game. If it doesn't, it becomes one of those projects people talk about later, like that thing that almost happened. LARP just doesn't happen because someone has a good idea. It happens because enough people say, yes, build this. I want to be a part of it. And right now, for Odysseus, that moment is happening. And it's not happening in 6 months, it's happening right now. I really believe in this project, and I want to convince you as well. So I thought I'd do something a little different here and show you the video from their website telling you all about the project themselves. If you're serious about LARPing or seriously interested in it at all, then this project is for you. watch, get enthused, and then go buy your place in LARP history.
This is an automated broadcast on every frequency. The Planetary Senate has initiated Emergency Protocol Alpha. Last night at 4:50 Elarian Standard Time, the machines attacked. All major cities in Elarian, Kylena, and Osiris have been destroyed. On this day of sorrow, we have no time to mourn. We fight for our very survival. All ships maintain radio silence and follow emergency protocol. May the wisdom light your way. End transmission. This is an automated broadcast on every frequency.
Odysseus First Light is a Finnish-style live-action role-playing game where 104 players become characters in an epic sci-fi story. It is inspired by science fiction we all love: Battlestar Galactica, Stargate, and Star Trek. But Odysseus is set in an original universe and it has its own lore.
As a player, you step into a pre-written character with a fully fleshed out past, meaningful relationships, loyalties, and desires, and they'll all come into play in unfolding this incredible story.
Over 600 players have already experienced this back in 2019 and 2024. Back then it was run by a big and amazing crew of volunteers. But our plan is to bring the spaceship back so that you have a possibility to experience the story of Odysseus.
To kick things off, we're going to need the help of you guys, our players. We're trying to run and build a fully immersive spaceship, and that'll mean employing a large team for at least 2 years.
The excellent thing about crowdfunding is that we will only move forward if you also believe in this project. Our backers will know our plans, our goals, and where the money goes from day one.
When you back the campaign, you are essentially buying a ticket in advance. If our goals are reached, you will be able to book a spot in one of the runs as a character in the story. You will be able to pay in installments, and you won't be charged anything unless the goal is reached.
We're planning on doing 10 runs starting October 2026, and we'll definitely add more if we exceed our goal.
We want to bring Odysseus back and keep running games for as long as people want to play them. But we also want to give back to the community. We want to create a space that also others can use. So we're hoping to open the doors of our spaceship for other LARP creators and event runners.
We want more people to experience cool things. Groups such as children, youth, and beginners are definitely some who we want to provide for. This is a passion project for us, and we want to share it with absolutely everyone, if possible.
It was my first LARP, and it was absolutely amazing.
What made Odysseus special for me was the atmosphere, the spaceship.
You kind of feel like you're on a film set for almost 50 hours.
It felt like a combination of so many spaceships that I've seen on TVs and movies that it felt really real.
Experience was life-changing. It is so good.
In my 15 years of LARPing experience, the single best game experience I've ever had.
So if I were boiling this week down to what actually matters for your calendar, right now, immediately, Glory of Guildhall is your you can still make this happen this weekend play. And Xadune is sitting in that same near-term window where waiting literally costs you money. Over the next couple of weeks, Ashen Showers from Dystopia Rising New York and Fallen in Germany are both active, real opportunities, one domestic, one international, but both in that decide now or miss it category. Looking just a little further out into May, Myth LARP and Citadel are your strongest campaign entries, with Myths early bird deadline on May 8th, and Menhirs Fate in the UK still holding its discount window through May 1st. So those are your plan it this week, not next month decisions. On the immersive side, in that same time frame, Titanic, Echoes from the Past opens May 2nd in Charlotte and runs through June 30th, making it a clean, put it on your calendar now experience. While What Are You Afraid Of in Somerville, Massachusetts is live right now, and that's a limited small group run that disappears quickly once it's filled. But the real pressure this week is in forward planning, because once LARPs move into open registration or application phase, that's not a soft window. That's when spots actually start disappearing. Magna Carta, Robin and John, is already open and filling with a very specific audience. FeindFahrt's English language run in January is actively selling now with a hard capacity limit. And Helicon's 2027 runs are visible early enough that you have an advantage, but only if you act while applications are still ahead of demand. And this week, add Demeter to that list, with tickets available April 15th for a November run, and only 26 participant slots aboard a real sailing ship. That's not something you check later, that's something you plan for now before that window even opens. And especially, the Griffin School is now taking applications, which means casting is happening not later, now. And once these roles are assigned, that door completely closes. And then in that quieter category, the Haven and reSound in New York are the kinds of immersive experiences that don't announce urgency. They just fill and vanish. And let's not forget Odysseus. You've got until April 16th to join their Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign. Do that. If you do anything this week, do that. Remember, the real takeaway this week isn't just what's happening, it's where the doors are open. Because once they're open, they're already closing. So a lot of times it's not just what's new that's important, it's what's actually still possible. Because the real missed opportunity isn't the announcement you didn't see, it's the event you could have gone to, but didn't realize in time. Okay? So get out there and make some plans. Onward into your story.